Dougherty. He's the founder, president, and CEO of Maker Media in Sebastopol. Make has been the catalyst for a worldwide maker movement that is transforming innovation, industry, hands-on learning and education, and the personal lives of makers everywhere. Dale?
Good morning. Pleasure to be here. I started publishing this magazine, Make, in about 2005. That was our first edition, quarterly. And it really was kind of a reinvention of popular mechanics and looking back to almost the 20th century and trying to reinvigorate that for the 21st century. We had new tools, we had new ways of doing things. And in my first issue, I called people makers. Our readers would be makers because they're going to do something. This was a magazine not designed to be read and just put away, but designed to get you out of your seat and into a shop and build something and create something and share it on the internet. About a year later, I was meeting so many interesting makers that I thought, I'm going to bring them together. And we started our first maker fair down in San Mateo. And I had no idea if people would come. People said, what's a maker and what's a fair with an E on the end of it? And you know, we had about 20,000 people show up in 2006. About 3 weeks ago, we had our 8th fair. We had 121,000 people show up as makers. And what's most important for this audience is the majority were children. I did not imagine that when I started this magazine, that this would have such broad appeal and interest among kids of all ages. And I really mean that because I think I can bring anyone to Maker Fair, be 80 or 8 years old or 18 months, and I think they get something out of that. But mostly what they see is our own creative culture. They see our ordinary people doing amazing things. And they see that it's not just the Nobel Prize winner. It's not just the well-recognized entrepreneur. But it's everybody has a little project going on in their kitchen or their backyard. And they bring it out and make it public at Maker Fair. Now we have a small Maker Fair here in April at the Sonoma County, at Sonoma Country Day. And it was lovely. It was really organized for kids. And I walked around it, and I saw how many hands-on things there, and it made me, I had this realization I hadn't had before, but kids have actually a tactile deficit today. They're not touching, holding, grabbing things. And that is an entry point for learning and experience. And so, but you know, it's this year we'll have over 100 maker fairs. Last weekend there was one in Vancouver and one in Taiwan at the same time. And these are like on the TEDx model, self-organized, group gets up and creates their own. But we should be having them in schools and libraries. And it should be part of what we do. So one of the things that has really disturbed me is that these kids who leave Maker Fair inspired, you know, to do things, go home and say, well, when do I get to do that? And it's kind of the fundamental question of this, I think, of whether it calls creativity, because what can you do? What can you do? And where do you learn to do it? Where do you get the opportunity to do it? Go to school, they're putting you in a passive position. They're not making you active or helping you acquire skills and knowledge to do so. So what we started seeing out in the maker community was the development of spaces, collaborative, shared spaces called maker spaces. Also called hacker spaces, Fab Labs, other names. But the important part is that it was a place to go where you had the opportunity to do stuff. And about a year ago, I was walking, I went to visit Comstock Middle School here, and in Santa Rosa. You know, and at one time it was a pretty big school. And we walked through the, Laura, principal, showed me, you know, where the shop class used to be, where the music room used to be. I mean, it's still there, but it's not happening there. And so, you know, I really see this makerspace as a kind of, you know, art studio, computer lab, wood shop, metal shop, anything, 3D printers. But we have to kind of bring them back into schools and create the opportunity, not the curriculum, create the opportunity to do stuff. And I'm pleased to announce that, actually Laura was telling me today, last year we started at Comstock a maker camp. And it ran at the day after when school was out for a month. And she told me 98 kids are enrolled in maker camp this year, starting today. And out of that, last year, one of the teachers, Dante, he's a biology teacher at Pioneer. We brought some Pioneer teachers to teach the kids because we wanted to expose them to making and for the kids at middle school to see that this might be something they get to do later on. Well, we discovered that Dante, outside of school, is a metal fabricator and makes motorcycles. And so he went back to Pioneer and started a makerspace there. And with the help of the county and some others, we have about 4 or 5 schools in the county doing active makerspaces. In Sebastopol, Annalee High School started a Project Make program. They started in our office and then took it back to the school this year and reclaimed the old shop class and the old space that they had and built it out. And, you know, so we have these things happening here, and I think they're really, you know, it's an important seed. But I just because, you know, what we need mostly in education, I'll echo this, is people. It's a people profession. That's why teachers are there. All the technology we can put in front of kids will not have any meaning unless we have people there to support it, talk to them, encourage them, help guide them down a path of their own choosing to make things and create. And the basic idea behind this maker movement is that we have to see ourselves as producers, not just consumers. We need to be active in our learning. We need to think about experience and how we gain the experience. And we really begin to look at the world and say, what can I do? What can I do? And what should I do? And what needs to be done? And I think you can answer that from a personal, a social, and a commercial perspective. So lastly, you know, we started a nonprofit last year called the Maker Education Initiative, and we are training young people to go out into youth serving organizations to engage kids as makers. And Maker Corps will be in 35 host sites around the country this year, and about 100 kids. So there's a lot of ways to go at this, and I think it is part of changing the nature of school, and I like to think of making it as kind of the uncommon core. Thank you.